Yo, how's it going, everybody? Thanks for being in. Grant, everybody tap the screen for Grant. Yo, my dog is in the background going crazy. I don't know what's going on. Guys, how's it going? How's everybody doing? You know what we're doing today? Tap the screen, share the live. Today we're talking about suffering. Today we're talking about the toxic relationship that would result in you believing that a God that loves you and loves everyone and created everything required that we suffer. Share this live to Jeff. If you don't know a Jeff, share this live to somebody you do know. Thanks for being here, guys. Yeah, a lot of times on these lives, the atheist is like, oh, well, I want you to prove that God is real. No, we are able to prove that God isn't. And I think that's the only rational place to land, right? So we want to hear from you, okay? We want to prove it. We're here. We're ready to go. We got caffeine. Hold on, I just gotta make it quick. We got caffeine, ready to go. If you disagree, come up and we'll talk about why you're wrong. Guest requests are open. We just ask that they are, relatively thought out positions that are had. We just want to make sure that they're relatively thought out positions that are being had. If this is your first time thinking about the subject, we like that, especially for you. We love that. But maybe don't come debate it first time. I don't know. No, in all seriousness, I appreciate you guys being here. Where do you request? The guest requests are open. All right, we're gonna get our first guest on, Mark. Mark, how's it going? Are you a believer over the age of 21?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, suffering disproves God.
This is a non sequitur, right?
Okay, explain how it's a non sequitur.
Yeah, so it's just you haven't demonstrated how suffering and God's existence are incompatible. You've just stated this. So can you go ahead and
Sure.
demonstrate that?
Yeah, sure. So, do you believe in the God of the omni properties?
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you mean by omnibenevolent?
Yeah, omnipresent, omnipotent, omnipresent,
Yeah, no.
omniscient.
I know what the omni properties are. I'm asking, what do they mean to you when you use or deploy them?
Yeah, they're just going to be definitional properties of God, the things that make God God.
Yeah. Okay. So let me make sure we're on the same page. When I say what do you mean, I'm asking in terms of omnibenevolence. Are you talking about like in a normative sense? Like what do you
Yeah,
think
God's love and
omnibenevolent?
suffering are not mutually incompatible. You still haven't demonstrated this.
There is. I'm okay. First of all, relax. Okay, we're not in Oxford, right? We're not. Nobody's getting a contract off this debate. Like, just chill. We're just trying to get terms defined. Okay, so by omnibenevolent, I mean in a normative sense, right? God does the moral odds in every case. Is that true?
God does the moral oughts.
Right. What God does
I
is
don't
what
think this
ought
is the
happen.
right way to phrase it because God is the ground of normativity itself.
Okay, sure. So God. Okay. So what is good is what. Okay, great. Omnipotence. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, he can do all logically possible things.
Okay, and then omniscience. What does that mean?
He knows all possible knowledge claims.
He knows all possible knowledge claims. Okay, sweet. Yeah. So, would we? Actually, we can just run through it really quick. You know what a modus tollens is, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, if the tri-omni God exists, he would not. Actually, that's for architectural. So, if the tri-omni God exists, no instance of gratuitous suffering exists. Do you agree?
No instance of gratuitous suffering exists. By gratuitous, can you define that?
Gratuitous means suffering that's not necessary.
Suffering that's not necessary. Um, yeah, no, I would already reject P1.
Okay. So why would what in the properties that we defined about God would we expect to be the reason why God with those properties would allow suffering that is not necessary?
Because if because God allows human beings to be secondary causal powers. So if human beings can be secondary causal powers, qua human nature, or if human beings cause suffering to arise in the world, one, it's not God's fault. So it's not God allowing per se gratuitous suffering. It's God permitting human action, even though suffering arises as a result of human action. So I would already just reject P1.
Okay, so would this um, apply to systems that don't have humans in it?
Yeah, but we're gonna hold in our anthropology that human beings are the pinnacle of creation. Human beings are the priest of creation. So when human beings err, the rest of creation feels the results of that error.
Yeah, you would have to demonstrate how that follows.
No, that's just my paradigm. Can you derive a contradiction from my paradigm?
Wait, no. You would have to demonstrate how that follows. I don't think that conclusion logically
It's my
follows.
paradigm.
Okay, you cooked me, brother.
It's my paradigm. So
All right, guys, tap the screen, share the live. Listen, for the first guest, I was cooked, so I want you to type L host in the chat. We'll follow up with our guest there. I'm not sure why he was so argumentative and forward. No big deal. We're gonna move on to the next guest. Yeah, I mean, just if you're just gonna presuppose things and state it as like, oh well, that's my paradigm, derive a contradiction. Yeah, you cooked me. Hey, Gesture, how?
Hey, how you doing, man? I'm sorry, the audio cut out for me. It might just be me.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay, I hear you now. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Are you a believer over the age of 21?
Yes, I am.
Suffering disproves God. Where do you disagree?
If you don't mind, could I get like further understanding of like what you mean when you say suffering disproves God?
Sure. Do you believe in the God of the Bible?
Yes, I do.
Does that God allow suffering?
Yes, he allows suffering.
Is there a reason for the suffering?
I would say so, yes.
Is it required that there's a reason for the suffering?
Could you break that down?
Sure. Can the God of the Bible, do you think that the God of the Bible would allow beings to suffer for no reason?
For no reason, no.
Okay. So let's say there's a forest and lightning strikes a tree in the forest and it falls on a fawn and it traps the fawn. The fawn has no way to get out. There's no human beings around to experience the suffering. There's no soul building from the suffering. The fawn is just trapped under a burning tree. It burns to death and dies. Is there a reason for that suffering?
And we're saying like if this happened in a modern context, right?
Any context. I'm saying in any context, if that example happens, is there a moral reason for that suffering?
Well, okay, I'll put it this way, and this is just my perspective in relation to your example. So, in a world where there is no God, in a world where all these things happen by chance or they just came to be, then I would say no, there was no reason for that. It
No,
just
no,
wasn't.
we're only talking. So the question assumes that there is a God, right? Like, so if I'm going to say that suffering disproves the God of the Bible, I'm already assuming that there is a God, right? We're having the conversation from an internal
Oh well,
position.
yeah. Then yeah. If there, in the sense of there is a God, then I would say yeah,
Well,
yeah.
what would be the reason for that example? There's no humans there. Like no humans were able to experience it or not. Like you and I weren't there. There's no moral lesson or story that can be taught. What would be the reason for allowing a juvenile animal to be trapped under a tree and burn to death and die?
Well, that's what, and this question is if I'm gonna be honest, in the sense of in the perspective that I have, this question isn't that well formed because okay, let's say there's no humans there, right? If from my perspective, the God, most high, he does everything. So he was the one that allowed that lightning to strike, to let the tree fall, to
Oh,
et cetera, to
wait.
burn
So
the.
so you think so it's not the case that God allows suffering. God caused the suffering in this case.
Well, the two. So, for example, he allows things like Job. He allowed what happened to Job to happen. Though at
Right,
the
but
end of the
Job isn't
day,
human. Hold on. The reason why I use the example of an animal, right,
uh,
is because every contention that you're giving me might work as a theodicy if we were talking about humans. Animals don't have souls. There is no moral reason for allowing this to happen to an animal because there's no humans there to experience it and there's no soul building going on. So my question is, why would a being like the God in the Bible that's
yeah.
supposedly all good, all powerful, and knows everything, why would a being like that allow this kind of suffering for no moral benefit? And it seems like the answer that we keep coming back to has something to do with humans. We're talking about Job. We're talking about other human beings, but there really isn't a response to why God would allow this for 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 no benefit to humans. Does that make sense? Like, does that part make
Yeah,
sense?
I see what you're saying. Like, I get what you're saying by that, though. It also talks about in the word how he has, a love for animals. Like, there's a time where the Israelites were aimlessly sacrificing animals, sinning and just sacrificing an animal to cover their sins. And he was like, nah, that's not the point of this. I don't want you to be killing animals for no reason. My heart goes out to the animals too. They're my
So then
creation.
why would he create a system in which animals take the humans all the way out of it, right?
Got you.
Take the humans all the way out of it. Why would God create a system where it is inherent in the system that animals would suffer at very high rates? Why would a God that's all good, all knowing, and all powerful, he always does the right thing, he knows everything, and he can do anything? Why would he create a system like that in which animals suffer for no moral benefit?
I'm okay. And what is the system? Can you say what the system
Nature,
is?
nature is filled with predation. Nature is filled with all kind of suffering. I mean, the example that I just gave you is is a stark example, but you can look at nature as a system itself. I mean,
Well,
uh,
that's the thing. If you look in the word in the Garden of Eden, his original plan for nature and mankind was it to not be filled with
does
suffering.
God know
For
everything?
very well so,
Did he always know everything?
I believe so.
So that means that when God created the garden and when God created Adam and Eve and all the animals and put them in the garden and gave Adam and Eve dominion over the animals, he knew that they would fall. He knew that suffering would enter into the world and he created it like that anyway. And that is exactly the point that I'm trying to make. That is exactly why the conclusion of a God with those properties in the world that we see is either he wanted it to happen. Well, that is the only option because he's
Well, so
perfect
let me.
and he always does the
Okay,
right
I see
thing.
what you're saying. So let me ask you this. Do you have children?
Yeah,
Okay, before you had your children, did you know that your children in this world would undergo some form of suffering of some
sure.
type?
100%.
Would that make you evil for having your children?
Do I control the parameters of the suffering in this world? Am I all powerful?
Well, well,
Hold on. Am I all powerful where I could have created the system to where my children were born into it and didn't suffer and made the choice to make the system in which they did suffer?
I
That
see. I see what you're saying.
we are naturally reproducing animals, right? Like I did not create the system that we currently are in. Number
So
one,
let's just simply talk about your home. I mean, I
it
don't
seems
know. I
like the
don't know.
question is being put back on me, but I can't get like a
I'll put
direct
it.
answer to my question.
Okay, what's your question? I'll answer your question. What's
My
your question?
question is, it was the original question: the fawn in the forest.
Uh-huh.
Why would a god that is perfect, knows everything, and can do everything create a reality in which animals suffer for no moral benefit. Would we
But
expect
that's
a
my
God
answer.
that
He didn't.
he didn't create the system that we currently live in?
And he created what he wanted for us. And then as the word says, ye are gods.
So he
We are
failed.
also
So God the Father failed in his intentions.
no, not at all. His intent was for us to have free will. We can't, like, I have children, for example. I
Hold on, but
can't,
free will is not an answer to animals, because animals
if we're
under
just
your
talking about
worldview.
animals to answer your question, I don't think he would do that. If we're
No, but
just
he
talking to
did.
answer,
No. You're
okay,
saying that you don't think that he would do that because you have
uh,
a emotional attachment to the character in the story. But he did, because we live in a world in which it exists. Period. Full stop. If you
my
believe
point,
that God knew everything always,
uh,
he God can't be surprised. He
right,
always
right.
knew how this would play out. You can't say, well, in the beginning, he wanted us to have free will and eternal dominion and communion with him. That's why he created Adam and Eve. And he never intended for sin to enter into the world. He did intend for sin to enter into the world because sin entered into the world. And he's perfect. I know you're not about to sit up here and say that God made a mistake. Everything
How,
that has ever played out is going according to God's divine plan, which means that everything that has ever played out was intended from the start. It was in the plan.
I get what you're saying, but that perspective, brother, like, I get what you're
Perspective,
saying. I can't, it's
prove
a
it
perspective
wrong.
in it.
It's not a
I,
perspective. It's a
I
logical
would very well say it
consequence.
is. I'll
It's a
say this because
it's a logical consequence of what we agreed about God. It's not my opinion. It is a logical consequence of the characteristics that we agreed that God has.
but that's like me saying what I'm getting from what you're saying is like I'm a father, I have children, and I know that I have to chastise my children. I
Are
get
you
you're saying
God?
animals.
Are
I
you
get
God?
I am not God, but I am a
So when you
God.
keep
So are
when you
you.
keep wait, are you God the Father?
No.
When you keep making comparisons or arguing by comparison, which is what you're doing, like we use comparisons all the time because it's an easy way for
Do you
us.
believe we're
Hold on,
made
can
in
I
his
finish? Can I
image?
finish real quick? We use comparisons all the time because it's an easy way for us to show what we're talking about. But every
Right.
comparison that you're using, you're equating us to fathers. You're not giving us the properties that you're giving God. So it's not a one-to-one comparison, number one. Number two, what did you say? You said, do I think we're made in God's image?
Well, like, do you agree that at least the text says that we are made in his image?
Yeah, yeah.
So that means if we're made in his image, that doesn't mean we're a one-on-one comparison, though it does mean that there are some
You're
similarities
making
in
my
between
point.
us.
Yeah, there might be similarities, but you're making my point, which is we can't use ourselves as examples when we're trying to show the parallels between God and not, because we're not God. I'm not perfect. I don't know all things. I'm not all powerful, and I don't always do the right thing. I make mistakes all the time. You don't believe that God makes mistakes. So when you're trying to say, oh, well, we're parents, we have to chastise our children. We're parents. We knew that the world had suffering in it, yet we still decided to have children. Yes, but we don't hold the same properties as God. So it's not a good way of showing what you mean, because all I'm going to say is I'm not perfect. I didn't create reality. God did. So,
Okay, if I get what you're saying, though, I think it's because you don't see the fullness of my point, though. If you just let me elaborate that point, and if you don't agree, then I'll hold my peace.
sure.
But what I'm trying to say is, I get what you're saying, though, to a degree. For example, I'll show you how strong, as humans, the Most High has made us. Because there's people who don't even believe there is a God and choose to operate that there isn't a God at all. Even though there's also people who do believe there's a God. If you ask each of those groups of people for evidence that there is a God or is not a God, they will both give you evidence they believe is, pretty valuable evidence. So that right there shows you how much of a human being can create their own world, their own reality, whether if you agree one way or not. So I'm getting into this for a reason. So in the same sense, as
Wait,
a,
hold on,
I'm
hold
a,
on, hold on. I have to make sure I understand before you move forward. Human
Uh-huh.
beings don't create their own reality. We don't create our own reality. If I said right now that there's a leprechaun standing next to me, that doesn't make it true. Reality is what corresponds to reality, right?
Well, I'm saying
I
within
don't
the
know what
limits
you
of
mean by that.
reality. Like, for example, someone can see a problem and say, "Oh, that's a meal." Like, that's someone can see a problem and say, "That's an opportunity for me to advance." Someone else could see a problem and say, that's a defeat." That's going to make me go underneath. Do you agree with that? It's a perspective thing. I'm not saying like what would you call that? Like alternate reality, like there's unicorns, whatever. I'm more so saying with what we're given here on this planet, we have a choice to view it as one way or another through a lens. You see what I'm saying?
What does any of this have to do with whether or not we would expect suffering on the God with the omni property? I'm
Right, and
confused.
I'm trying to work it there. But do you see what I'm saying?
N-
At least with that point.
I guess.
Okay, so my point is, when it comes down to having, being a father and having children, I could say I'm basically, I know that I'm not all knowing, but I do know, dang, my children are not perfect, as you said. They might fall, they might, yell at me, might cuss me out, might go do, who knows what. Though I know this before I have these children, right? So that's this in the same perspective. The Most High had us, as call in the word it calls us. Well, if we do what He says, it calls us His children. So the same way, I'm not going to be like, you know what? I'm not going to make my child miss out on the opportunity of life because they might go against me. Is the same way He didn't
But
take
there
away
is
that
no
gift from.
might. That's why I was trying to say before that comparing us to God doesn't work. Because with you and I, you're right. I have kids, right? I
Uh-huh.
knew that there could potentially be negative things that would happen in their life. Potentially. God knows exactly. There is no potentially anything. God knows
What do you?
exactly every single negative thing that will happen, not only in one particular child's life, but in all of our lives. Every single
So
one.
you're saying it's better He wouldn't. It's better if He never even made us. Is what you're trying to
No, I'm
say.
saying it's
And
better.
and
No, I'm saying it's better that he make us in a way in which we don't suffer in the way that we do. It's better that he makes us in a way that reality doesn't result in St. Jude's Children's Hospital being full of children that have, some of them in some cases, uncurable diseases. A world in which we have to raise and slaughter how many animals per year to feed ourselves. A world in which there are parasites that burrow into into all of these things that we can pick out. God chose to put in the world. He didn't
yeah,
have
no,
to. There's
no,
no
He did. That's the point. He didn't. That's the point I'm trying to show you, because He didn't put this stuff in the world. It was a how do you put it? It was a judgment for what we've done. For
a judgment
example,
by who?
for by
Who?
God, He has to.
So
He
he
has to.
did put
He
it
has
in
to.
the world. What do
No,
you
no, 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 no.
mean?
This is what I'm saying. I'm saying Cain killed Abel,
Did God
correct?
know he would do that?
Yeah, yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
so you and I are both adults.
Right.
If I do something where I know that there is a possibility that I'm going to hurt you and I do it anyway, am I responsible for that?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
If I know that my action could potentially lead to harming you or your family and I take that action anyway, am I responsible for that?
Yeah, if you take that
So
action,
if
yes.
God knows perfectly that Cain would kill Abel, and God knows that if he creates the universe, the world, separates it from the deep, creates light and calls it good, and does all these things, creates the animals, creates the sun, creates Adam and Eve, they create Cain and Abel, and he knew that all these things would happen. God is responsible for that. The same way that I would be responsible for my actions if it resulted in harming you or your family, right?
No, you just said if you knew, you said if you knew it and you did it versus if God knew it and someone else did it. That's a difference. We are
God,
responsible for our own actions. I
right?
can't
Did
go
God
out
create
here and do
everything?
something. Well, give me 1 second. I can't go out here and do something and then how would it look? Us looking on situations, it's easier for us to say, oh, God is so evil because he did that to these people. But what about the person who actually did the thing that is
God
not getting
actually
any
did the thing.
responsibility?
God
What
actually did
as
the
you know,
thing. He created everything. I don't understand this, guys.
you're
I don't.
saying
I
you're
don't feel
saying
like.
just because
Hold
he
on.
created.
Yes, he did. Yeah, yes. Just because
So
he
just because
created.
I
Yes.
created my
Yeah.
children, I'm responsible for the things they do, even if I teach them not to do
Do
it.
you have perfect knowledge?
No, that's not what I asked you. I
Oh
said
no.
because you
That.
don't need perfect knowledge
Yes,
to
you
raise your
do.
children in the right
Oh my
direction.
goodness. Okay.
You
All
don't
right.
need perfect
I
knowledge to
appreciate
teach
it.
your.
I got you. I know. You cooked me. You cooked me. You know, I don't know what else to say. If you think that a human being who is not perfect, who doesn't always do the right thing, who doesn't know everything, and does not have the power to do everything possible that God does. If you think that me as an imperfect being
Uh-huh.
who was created by God, I'm responsible for my actions. Every single one of
Right.
my actions I'm responsible for. But God, who is perfect and knows everything, is not responsible for his actions because the first action, the decision to create, period. The first action. If you're saying that God is not responsible for his creation, yet I am responsible for my behavior, I don't know how to have a conversation with you.
Brother, this is equivalent to a trust fund baby saying, growing up and being like, my dad let me do whatever I want. He gave me
You just
life
don't
and
want
I
to.
failed
You
and I
just don't want
messed
to.
up. So I gotta blame my
It's
dad for everything and
uncomfortable.
everything
It's
I did wrong.
uncomfortable, gesture.
It's
It's uncomfortable. I'm all about people taking responsibility for their actions. All about
right.
it, including God. You guys always
Right.
want
I
to give
agree.
God a pass. No. You don't agree because you've been telling me for the last 10 minutes that somehow God is not responsible for His creation, but I'm responsible for my behavior.
No, you
You
see,
just
look,
said that I'm. Hold
creation,
on.
brother.
Hold on, Daddy. You just likened me to a trust fund baby, right? I don't understand how we've been having a conversation back and forth, and I can't get you to land on it's just being consistent. If it is the case that I'm responsible for my actions, action A I'm responsible for it because I do it, yet God is not responsible for his action A, I don't know how to deal with the special pleading. But it's all right. I appreciate you, big dog. Thank you for coming up. Guys, tap the screen. We had 4 new followers. Thank you so much for being here. We're at 2,300 likes. Tap the screen. We're gonna get our next guest on at 5K likes. Just a little bit of a breakdown. That was a good one. That was good. I like our last guest, so be nice to him, okay? I think we're just gonna take a quick note. We're gonna get our next guest up. Where the conversation broke was responsibility. So next time we need to establish a consistent mechanism to evaluate causal responsibility. All right. Thank you so much. We're gonna get our next guest on. Keep tapping the screen. Also, go pick a video on the page and give it a view and give it a share. Try to get the creator fund. Savvy, how's it going? Are you a believer over the age of 21?
Yo, what up, though?
What up?
Yes.
Yes, I believe suffering disproves God. Where do you disagree?
From my understanding of suffering, how are you defining suffering?
Yeah, so we can either talk gratuitous suffering or animal suffering.
So are you applying both, or?
Yeah, we can. I mean, I think. Do you believe? Do you believe
Like
in
how
the?
like well, how do you define suffering? Would help.
Yeah. So gratuitous suffering in this case would be suffering that's not necessary.
Okay, but that's not defining suffering. You know, that's defining necessity for something to be non a necessity. But what is suffering to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think a general definition of suffering would be like. Honestly, it's actually a very low bar, so it's like general discontent.
General discontent.
Mhm.
So
But
discontent is
that's why like
suffering.
specifically I
So
define gratuitous.
unnecessary. Sorry,
Yeah, that's
unnecessary discontent.
well, I mean unnecessary suffer. Yeah, unnecessary discontent, like physical discontent. Or I mean, it could be. That's why I said general discontent. It could be emotional suffering, but the
So
specific
wait,
version.
discontent
Hold on,
is suffering. Oh, go
the
on.
specific version of suffering that we're talking about is gratuitous suffering.
Yeah, gratuitous just meaning unnecessary,
Right,
correct?
right. Suffering that's not required for any sort of.
Unnecessary discontent. To be content with something is meaning you're okay with something, correct? And so to be discontent is to mean you're not okay with an outcome or you're not okay with an experience.
Yeah, I mean, it could be physical pain, psychological pain, discontent. Yeah, I mean, it's a
So
very low
pain and
bar.
discontent are very different. And that's how I define suffering, as something painful. But when you say discontent, that definitely takes
Well, what is
your prompt off the table, in my
well?
opinion.
Okay, how so?
Because discontent just means you're not content, you're not okay
Right,
with an experience.
right. So why would God allow? We can even use that. Why
Why
would God
would
allow?
that
Why would God allow discontent that's unnecessary?
I mean, do you have a will? Do you have desires of your own?
I don't know.
You don't know if you have desires. Do you have children?
What does this have to do with God?
Well, we're talking about
I asked you a
discontent.
question. I asked you, why would God allow discontent that is unnecessary? Unnecessary meaning it is not required, right? And then you're asking me a question. Are you going to answer the
Yeah,
question, or
because
should I just? Can I
I
finish?
mean,
Can I
it
get?
was
Wait. Can I
oh,
get
go
through
ahead.
my sentence real quick? Thank you.
Okay, go on.
Are you going to answer the question, or should I just go to the next guess?
Yeah, I was about to answer your question. I was
You
answering
asked
your
me a
question.
question,
Yeah,
which is not answering your
insinuating.
question.
Okay, so let me answer the question then instead of providing a rhetorical question.
Right. Thank
You
you.
have free will, meaning you have a desire to do different things in your life. If you have children and you being intellectually dishonest by saying you don't know if you have desires, because if you have children, you would desire them to have a quote unquote good life.
Not
You know,
everybody.
to be.
Right. Not. What are you
I'm
talking
I'm
about?
speaking about.
What are you
Everybody
talking
has
about?
desires. Everybody has desires.
Okay.
And
What
when
does
you
this
say
have to
that
do
they
with
don't,
why?
and when you
What
say
is?
that you don't know, you're being ingenuous.
What does this
Disingenuous.
have to do with why God would allow suffering that is gratuitous?
Yes, because all content means and discontent means is that you're okay or you're not okay with your environment and experience and outcome. But because we all have a will of our own and we're not robots, that's just that's
So your
a, co-
answer
a
to
consequence of
okay,
of having your own desires.
okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this.
Do, what do you do?
We're
You
gonna
do you
do
follow
this.
where I'm going?
No, I don't follow where you're going. So we're gonna do this the boring way, so that we can make sure we move through the conversation in a way that's like meaningful. Because at this point, I feel like we're just playing a semantical game. So do you believe that the tri-omni God exists?
Yes, God is triune.
Okay, so would that God allow suffering that is gratuitous?
By your definition of suffering, he has to, because he gives us a desire of our own. If he takes away our desires, there will be no discontent. Do you understand?
No.
Does that make sense? Well, how can you have desires and not have discontent as a result of not being able to accomplish those
Do you have free
desires?
will in heaven?
You didn't answer my question. I
Do you
just
have free
answered
will in
yours.
heaven? I'm showing you how you are
We don't have
your
free.
world
I
is
don't believe.
You
I
don't
don't
believe
believe
we
we
have free will?
necessarily. Yeah, by definition, no. But we do have a
Do we have
will.
desire in heaven?
Yes,
Wait, so you just said that God allows suffering because he allows you to have desire. Is there
discontent.
suffering? Is there suffering in heaven?
No,
So you believe in a place, or at least a state of affairs, where you don't suffer, yet you have desires in heaven.
correct,
Right.
correct.
So God could have created that existence here.
He did, and then we ate the apple and was kicked out of the heaven.
Now
quote unquote.
we're gonna go into the same thing that we went to with the last guest. Did God know that they would eat the apple?
Yes, but
So he
it's not.
caused
He
it.
didn't. How is that equal causation? If you watch a movie and then rewatch it, did you cause any of the actions in that movie?
Did God create the movie? Did I create the movie? In this hypothetical, did I
This
create the
is
movie and the characters in the movie and write the script and direct the movie and then
no
cause it?
no.
Because
That's
that
not
would
what
be
happened with.
because that would
That's
be
not
a
what happened with God. That's
so
not what
does
happened with God.
you believe in the triune God, which means he knows
Correct.
everything, he has the power to do anything, and he always does the right thing, right?
Of course,
So that means that when he first created, he knew that Adam and Eve would be tempted by the adversary and fall from grace, right?
he he knew that that was a
That's a yes or
possibility.
a no question.
It's not a
It
yes or
can't
no. It's
be
a
a
possibility.
possibility
I
if
can
he
explain
knows
why.
everything. Okay, so I told myself I was just gonna make shooting content on Instagram. Like I was just gonna go out and just make shooting content. But I was like, you know what? Don't let them beat you down mentally. You don't let them do this to you. You don't let them push you around. You don't let them beat you down mentally. You guys are winning right now. You guys are winning. All right. Who is next? Guys, we only have about half an hour left. Do you guys want to continue to do this topic, or should we just go back to our normal? Hey, Elizabeth, how's it going? Are you a believer over the age of 21? Hello? Hey, Sato, thank you for the follow. I appreciate you. All right. I've been told to get Jenny up. Huh?
I'm going to try and talk quickly without getting interrupted with little people over here.
Oh, I know how that goes.
Yeah.
Yes. Are you a believer over the age of 21?
Yeah, I was talking to you the other day, I think yesterday or the day before.
Yes. Yeah. What did you want to say?
47. Yeah, I wanted to just kind of comment on the thing about the animal that you were talking about earlier.
Oh, sure.
Mhm. I think it has to do with like um upstairs. Yeah. I think it has to do with like the concept of life and death, that we have a hard time with that concept as humans. I think the reality of it is that, we are all going to live and die in this place physically. And I think that at that moment of transition or whatever you call it, we don't understand fully what happens, but we see it as suffering, right? Because we don't like it, you know? But we don't fully know, like, we don't actually know, because apparently they can't do testing at that stage. So we don't really know. Like, to us, it's horrendous, but we don't know, like, pain levels, thresholds, or anything actually after a certain point.
Yeah, but we
So,
can
but
see suffering in life too. Like it's not just about death. I mean, we live in a system where if you just look at the animal kingdom for more than 5 minutes, you can see all kind of suffering. And why would we expect a loving God to create a system where animals like grape, bite, rip and tear each other apart, when he could have
Yeah.
created a system where they don't do that, is the question.
Yeah, I think it's a concept that we wrestle with, right? I think the great thing, the best thing is to try and have these conversations in order to figure it out. But I think it has to do with, as you were talking about, like it has a lot to do with the system, the whole system of life and death, right? And this is going to sound crazy in ways, but there is some necessity to this physical death because of our human, I think, level of ignorance as well. Because there's some like understanding. I'm gonna have to go in a minute because the kids are going crazy. But there's some kind of like understanding of ours that is limited. It seems, like basic concepts such as gratitude, wisdom, like there's all of these type of concepts that we wrestle with and we have a broader understanding of when we start to look fully at this concept of physical death. So I think it's but I love the question. I still think it's a very valuable and important, necessary question for you to be asking and for us to be looking at. But I think this whole thing that you mentioned about the systems as well is that, I think it's possible that as a whole, we're not able to eliminate some of the components. The components, right? Remember we talked about that yesterday and the day before?
Yeah,
That,
could God have
yeah,
eliminated the components? And maybe we might not be able to, but I think the whole point
yeah,
of why I think suffering disproves God is because God had every opportunity to eliminate those points in the system. And if you and
yeah,
I sat down and we were creating reality and we were trying to be, decent people, if we had
yeah,
the option to pick whether there would be suffering that's not necessary, I'm not talking about necessary suffering. If some people want to
yeah,
argue that some suffering is necessary, great, have at it. But I'm talking about the suffering that's not necessary, right? Like
yeah,
if
yeah.
we could
Mm-hmm.
stop things from
I get it.
suffering,
Yes.
why wouldn't we?
Yeah, I get it. I'm thinking, so I'm kind of like going on this new sort of a path that, as you can see, I'm a bit of a deep thinker, right? I kind of get right into these deep thoughts and try and figure this out. I'm sort of chipping away at it myself. And I'm trying to take this new approach because I've had all this wrestling and everything too, a new approach of trying to figure out if I can look at it in a supportive way towards God, as opposed to a blaming stance, right? And as I do that, I'm starting to come up with some of these understandings. So I'm thinking that I don't want to lose my thoughts here. I tend to do that a lot, but that it's possible that like all of these like that on a human level we sort of I think it, and I'm seeing this that it's all, not only myself, but it seems to be a common trend, a common pattern where humans are like, well, why not, can't you just do this? And then so then we tend to kind of go on this sort of blaming thing, right? But maybe I'm thinking that it could, and I'm not saying this is the answer, okay, absolutely not, but I'm sort of just exploring this. It could be possible that we are not capable, we are just not, maybe it might be possible that we were not able to be created or made, at least in this physical form, in a way that like to have this physical experience in a way to understand the whole system, as you say, and every single component, and why this and that and that. And sort of what we're doing at this point, which I say is good, is we're chipping away at it. We're trying to figure this out. And why? Because I don't have the answer right now, but I think if we look at it from that perspective, we might be able to get more of the answers, more as a supportive, like on a support, like more
Why though?
instead of an opposite. Yeah. Mhm.
It's I guess my question is why? It seems like we're
Mhm.
being stared in the face by the
Mhm.
problem. And instead of
Right.
addressing the problem, we're saying, well, what if we look at it this way? Like, I'm not
Mhm.
blaming God for no reason. I'm looking at the environment that we're in and I'm just asking questions, right? Like, based
Yes.
on what I'm being told about that
Right.
God, right? Like,
Yeah. So give me a chance.
If I
Yeah.
told you that
I want
I
to
was
respond. Yeah.
if I
Love
told
it.
you that I was a good
Yeah.
person, yet I ran somebody off the road in my car and you watched me
Yes.
do it, you would have questions as to why you would be considering me a good person. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not blaming God per se. I'm saying, well, if you're telling me that God is good, why do we see X?
Yes, and I think that possibly in the overall bigger picture of all of this, that opposition, believe it or not, is a key part. I think that you having this opposition or sort of having this and saying why and how, and I think that that is actually a part of the whole bigger, broader thing of whatever this all is. I think that you taking on that position, I guess what you would call it morally or whatever, towards God is a part of the puzzle, is what I'm saying. And in order to figure out at the end game, as we chip away at this, that is a key part of the puzzle that has to be done, is that we do need to, and I think like overall in the whole thing of all of whatever this human experience is, that is something that's necessary for us to be doing, to be understanding even like the root, even the whole concept of life and death itself, and whether or not I'm going to try and put it in simple terms, whether or not we oppose that, whether or not we like that, whether or not we want to continue on. Because the way I've seen it is, because I've wrestled with this myself too, I think like the majority of people don't like loss. The majority of people don't like separation from our loved ones. The majority of people perhaps don't like separation from God, because it's like, wait a second here, like I don't like to not have these answers. I want to know. The majority of people, wrestle with the lack of knowledge, the limited knowledge with life and death. And I think all of that is kind of like a thing to sort of say to us, like it's forcing us to kind of look at it, and where as human beings maybe we might not. There's also another concept of, even, it's very simple, because I've looked at this, and I've said to myself, hey, I think that we could solve this whole thing if we just eliminated death, right? Because if you don't have death anymore, nobody can get hurt. Animals can't get hurt. So if we lived forever, right, and there'd be no pain, because you can't hurt anyone else, right? I think that's one of the things that we despise the most here in this experience is any type of suffering and death, right? But then somebody mentioned to me, they said, well, what about hurting someone else? Like feelings, even hurting feelings, it deeply. So I think there's like kind of like anyway, I just love talking to you. I want to say, yeah, I think
Do you
you're
mind if I
awesome.
interject here a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
I came in mainly when Savvy was up about the whole will, blah, blah, blah. This is like a lot of copium. First of all, how you doing, Justin? I hope you're doing all right. Don't let them win.
It's good to hear from you. Yes.
Don't let them win. When they go into the God needs to do this and God needs to do that, and oh, we would be robots otherwise, I just lean into it. What's wrong with being a robot?
Right. I mean, hey.
Like, just what's wrong? Then you can't hurt people. But this whole notion of, oh, there's a bigger picture and we can't possibly understand, that's a lot of copium. That's a lot of God has to do with this particular way. You're taking away his omni properties.
Yeah.
These omni properties get you guys in the end, because if you're all powerful and all loving, there should be no harm. If I could literally do anything and I love my creation, harm is not necessary. I'm fucking God. I
That's
can
the whole
do
point
anything.
that I've been trying to get to all morning.
Right.
Jenny, I appreciate you being up. Thank you so much. That's the whole point I've been trying to get to all morning. And I think the struggle comes when we try to lay it out in a way, because there is a lot of copium going on, and I get it, right? Especially coming up in the system that we came up in. Okay, I understand there's an emotional connection to it, but what I'm asking is to like critically evaluate the thoughts. Every guest that we've had today has agreed that God has those three omni properties. once you tell me that God is all good and all powerful, there are a lot of questions. Even if he's not fully all knowing, if he's all powerful and all good, there would at least be an attempt to eliminate suffering that's not required. And then you tell me that he knows everything, which means that this God knew exactly how the decisions that it made to create would play out. And we see, take your pick, leave the stuff that humans do to one another out of it, right? Whatever. You guys think that there's some sort of soul building reason, there's some sort of higher moral prevailing reasons. Fine. Leave it out. Take the things that have nothing to do with humans and ask yourself, is this an indication of a being that is all loving? I don't know what we're doing.
But they forget too that in Romans 9, God said he made vessels of destruction.
Don't start. Reading Romans chapter 9 is one of my favorite things to do, and I should have read it to Savvy. Morning, bro. I should have read it to Savvy, because we love to talk about free will. We love to talk about there's a reason for this and there's a reason for that. We don't like reading Romans chapter 9.
Bruh. He said, I'm going to make you just for the hell of it.
He said, what if for my glory I created you as a vessel for destruction? Who are you? I didn't even ask your opinion. And then remember what he did to Job. That was for no reason other than to show the adversary that Job was one of the homies, that he was going to rock with him.
He told Pharaoh, like, yeah, I rose you up for this. And it's like that also eliminates this idea of free will, because I can't not do what you rose me up to do. I can't do the, like, if you think about God's plan involves Jesus being turned on. Judas had no choice in that. Judas is going to burn eternally because he did what God said he was going to do.
Do I have the dread? If you're all powerful, do I, as your mere creation, have the power to outpower your all powerful?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. This whole thing doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And I feel like forgive me, I'm walking into my house right now, but I feel like we give God so much credit for the good, right? If the analogy I use, if there's a group of people in my city, homeless, have nowhere else to eat, and I have a surplus of food. Let's say I have a box of food, 100 boxes of food that will last, let's say, 6 months each box. And I give them out. It's 50 homeless families. I give out 2 to each family. They would thank me. They would say, thank you, Avery, for helping. Like, you know what I'm saying? The same way we thank God for our food over Thanksgiving, Christmas, etc. If I then take those same homeless people and decide I'm gonna give food to certain people but not others, just like they thank me for giving out the food, they would criticize me. People would criticize me for not doing it. And I don't understand why we acknowledge God gives us food, God gives us this, but when we talk about the starving people, it's like, oh, well, that's not God. That's human error.
Yo.
We hold people to a higher standard.
Thank you,
God.
Kiki. Also, shout out Smurf. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, we hold people to a higher standard than God. It's always, so what are you doing?
Did y'all hear the colleague before he said, I am responsible for my children and myself, but God isn't responsible for his creation. I just couldn't understand that. Sandra, go ahead.
No, it's craziness. It's like, well, why aren't you limited mortal human? Why aren't you solving the world's problems? Like,
I got bills. I gotta pay bills. I don't have the time. I wish I could.
But funny enough, when we watched what a boatload of cops that were armed to the teeth, when we watched them sit and twiddle their fingers during Uvalde for 60 minutes on camera,
oh my goodness,
we called them useless. But when God sits and twiddles his fingers for 400 years, he's mysterious.
You know what? Don't even trip. Hold on, watch this. Because you know what? like I told Sandra before you got up here, and first of all, shout out, time out. Obsidian, Surf, and Kiki, thank you so much for the gifts. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody, shout out the OG members in the chat. Shout out. I always have the top viewer up here, and every time Kiki comes in, she's the top viewer. So shout out, tap the screen, clap it up for them. But to your point, I was gonna, because they really be playing sometimes. I don't understand how I am being told that I am responsible for my actions, and our man God slept through slavery. He slept through the Atlantic slave trade. And while I have the two of you here,
Justin, your sound, I don't know if it's me, but your sound just went out.
Yeah, sound went out.
my dog ate my cord, but I just, there's this question that's going around, and I don't even really think we should dignify it with an answer, but people.
It went out again, brother.
Is it better now?
Also, for the people in the back. Yeah, you good.
So I want to hear from the two of you, who suffered more, Jesus or the slaves?
Oh, the slaves. The slaves for sure. Jesus was never pregnant while he was getting his ass beat.
That's what I did. I agree. And I just want to clarify, I don't think God was asleep during slavery. That nigga was wide awake, because them slave masters was praying to oppress us, and he answered every single one of them prayers. Still to this day, when you look at how the system is stacked, when you look at the fact that the majority of people who are descendants of slave masters on Fortune 500s are able to lobby the politicians and all these things, this man was not asleep during slavery. He was just ignoring the fuck out of your black ass. That's it.
That's so rough. That is so rough. We were gonna do why would a loving God condone slavery? But I try to move the conversation away from child sacrifice and slavery, but it's a very good tool to show how these beliefs are not abstractions, right? These beliefs are still beating people's asses today. The idea that a loving God would allow you to enslave another human being is still dunking on people today. The idea that a loving God would ask you to sacrifice your child is still something that people are grappling with today. We got Asher, who's been here. We want to bring Asher up. We don't have too much time left. I got to go do garden tasks. So let's see what Asher wants to talk about. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Asher, are you a believer over the age of 21?
Yes, I'm a believer over the age of 21.
Okay. What
Yeah.
did you want to say?
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the old prompt, suffering dispose God. Yeah. And I've noticed something. I've noticed that anytime you are cornered, you immediately bring up God's all-knowing and all-powerful nature. Okay. However, here's the problem with that, because I don't like arguing from a Christian standpoint or an atheist standpoint. I like arguing from a logical standpoint. Now, in a philosophical and logical standpoint, the moment you evoke an omnipresent and all-knowing and perfect being, you say he didn't do this right. He didn't create the right world. If you notice a mistake or a problem in an omnipresent and perfect being's world, you are mistaken. Because you cannot say someone is perfect and all-knowing and all-powerful and say he made a mistake or he didn't create a perfect world. You would just be mistaken. Yes. Logically, you cannot say that someone who, because you keep bringing it up, is, you said God is, you keep bringing out the argument that God is omnipresent.
When did I say you made a mistake?
No, because based on your arguments are that the world is not perfect because he has suffering, right? He has suffering, he has evil, he has slavery. Am I correct?
No, my argument is that a God
Yeah.
of the omni properties would not allow
You're not-
gratuitous suffering.
How would you know? Are you all perfect? How would you know?
Because of the properties, because of the logical.
Yeah.
The
So
logical
if
intent.
that God has all that,
Hold on. You asked me a question. Are you gonna let me answer it or no? Thank you.
answer.
Yeah,
Of course.
no
I
problem.
love
No problem.
answer it.
No problem. How we know is because it would be a contradiction in the terms based off of the properties that we granted God. So the logical entailments of a God that's.
Oh, you just cut out,
We
Justin.
can't hear you. We can't hear you.
It's because there would be a contradiction in the properties.
All right. Now, inconsistency is when you are trying to show a fault in a being that you've already called perfect. That's inconsistency. Okay? So that would mean whatever you see that is wrong would be your subjective view you'll be mistaken in a subjective view, which means personally you disagree, but an all-perfect being cannot be wrong. Which means if an all-perfect being created a world, there cannot be another perfect world.
Give us the justification for these things that you're saying. Like, for
No,
example,
wait.
Hold on.
Jeff, you're a little muffled, friend.
I'm sorry. When you're saying that these things, like we're saying these things are wrong from a subjective viewpoint, right? For example, there's a verse in the Bible where God, because a commandment is, or a sin is transgression against God's law, right? There's a verse in the Bible where God gives a law to Moses that says it is perfectly okay to essay little girls so long as you capture them as prisoners of war. You can shave their heads, clip their nails, give them a month to grieve the loss of their family, and then you may enter them and marry them. And if you are not sexually satisfied with them, you may dispose of them, right? That is a law, right? Now, to me, to Sandra, to Justin, like there's never a justification, right? No matter what time period, no matter what context, there's never a justification to essay anybody, especially children, but never a justification for essay, period, right? Now, I want you, right, because you said this is our subjective viewpoint, I want you to give me the objective that makes essay okay. Go ahead.
Why are we going into the Bible do you believe in the Bible?
I'm going according to what God said. This is God's law. So I want you to give me the justification that makes this okay.
All right. Now we're going to the Bible. You don't believe in the Bible. The Bible is fake. That's why I said I don't
What
want
does that have to do with?
Brother, we're talking about God.
Sorry. Yeah, we're talking about God. Now, you said that the Bible does not exist because you're not a Christian. You are not a Christian, so we cannot. That's why I said I want to be focused on logical arguments. Now, you seem to be arguing that SA is morally wrong. As an atheist, which I'm sure you are,
This is a shifting of the burden
moral
of proof. You're shifting the burden of
which
proof.
moral you don't believe with? Atheists do not. In atheism, there is no such thing as moral.
I think okay. So to
Moral
answer
is
your
borrowed
question,
from.
right? I do believe.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, morals are borrowed from religion. So you,
That's not true.
Mr. Grateful,
Oh, they are.
as an atheist believes only in relative and material things. So there's
Well, okay,
no morality in atheism. Okay,
So
if
just
there's
to answer your question,
what are the moral laws of atheism? What are the moral laws? Please
so
describe.
to answer your question, right?
Yeah.
Just historically, that is not true. We can look at any religions or any cultures that predate Christianity, that predate
Yeah.
Judaism. We can look at ancient Mesopotamian cultures and things of that nature,
Most
and we
cultures
can
were
see that.
religious.
Hold on. I'm
Most
answering your
cultures
question. We can see that there was never a necessity of this Judeo-Christian God to
Of
to
course, you
invoke
didn't
the.
say
Hold
that.
on.
You said
You
religion.
would. Thank you. So there was never this idea that morals are borrowed from religion. Morals have always been borrowed from different cultures and what their cultural ideas were at the time, and they put those into things. They implemented those into their spiritual practices, their religious practices, et cetera, et cetera. This is not anything new.
But
But to
but
answer
those
your
God's in
cultures,
Mesopotamia.
but
sorry,
to
sorry,
but to
those
answer
cultures.
to go
Wait,
back to what I to
sorry.
go back to the point I was making, right? And it seems to be a point you're running from, right? And I can pull up I
You
can pull up the
lie.
actual verse. I'm not talking to you, copycat, but I can pull up the actual verse that I'm referring to. It literally is titled "Marrying Foreign Captives," and we all know that captives cannot give any kind of consent. So when the verse
How do you know? No. Now
so when
you're
we know,
making.
hold on,
Now
slow down.
you're making. Now wait, you're making now suggestions. You
I'm not
said
making a
said that.
suggestion. I'm going
No,
with the Bible.
you said we know. No, no. Wait. Sorry,
hmm
please. When we are arguing, let's be correct, please. Let's
I'm
use
being correct.
precise language. We are not here to make suggestive
Oh my
language.
What am I
God,
suggesting?
don't be a
You
great
said
apologist,
we all
Asher.
know.
Captives can't
Sorry.
consent. No,
Not
pause.
on a Sunday
Captives
morning, brother.
Yeah.
cannot consent. Stop doing that.
Based on
Dreadful
what?
is not being
Based
wrong in
on
what he
wait,
says. We know,
who knows?
KNOW,
Based
we
on what?
know
Based
that
on what?
captives cannot consent. Don't do that bullshit.
Based
Hold on, time out.
on what?
Slow down. So I just want to be
Sorry.
clear, and I'm actually, I hate this because the conversation is getting great, but I do have to go. But really quick.
Oh
no!
no! You are not
No,
going
I
there.
do. I only got an hour. I gotta go do garden tasks. I'm gonna be back. Okay, we're on every
Oh
every
no!
Wednesday,
I'm
Friday,
just getting
Saturday,
fired
Sunday.
up.
Okay, no. But this is the problem, because we're supposed to be having an internal critique, Asher, that assumes God is real. And what you're doing is you're shifting the burden of proof back to the non-believer and saying, well, under your paradigm or under your worldview, why are these things wrong? That's irrelevant.
But
We are talking
I just wanted to say
we are
something about
talking about
animal suffering.
we're talking about a God with the omni properties that assumes that God is real. Our worldview and the atheist position and thoughts are irrelevant to that point. Not relevant. Love you guys so much.